Yes, welcome back to The Agenda. Katie Chambers, I am with you until 1 p.m. today. We do news, analysis and comment. The kind of news this hour is that we've just had this striking new climate report out that's suggesting that Europe is warming faster than anywhere else on Earth, and also heat waves inside the Arctic Circle are growing. But we're going to bring the climate conversation a little bit closer to home now. Obviously, the latest data is showing that how quickly those temperatures are rising. But let's have a look at what we're doing here in the UAE, what action actually looks like. There is a climate law that's been in motion for coming up to 12 months. But the last year has been somewhat of a grace period, you might say, giving businesses until the end of May to fully comply. So the deadline is now very much in sight. It introduces new requirements around things like emissions, reporting, accountability for businesses. There'll be penalties that can reach up to 2 million dirhams for companies that fail to meet those standards. It's not just about sustainability, though. It's also about, regulation enforcement and I guess real change here. But the question is, with not long to go, how ready are businesses and what do they actually need to be doing right now to get ready? Hopefully answering all those questions. Joining me in the studio is Gouban Gopal. He is Executive Director for Strategy and Transformation at Grant Thornton UAE. Welcome, Gouban. It's your first time here in the studio.
It is my first time. Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
We're delighted to have you. If you can explain to me in layman's terms, if possible, what does this UAE climate law actually require businesses to do?
Yeah, sure. So I guess the UAE climate law, which has come into play, is requiring businesses to firstly measure the emissions they have through their operations, secondly report on it, and then also be able to put in an action plan to be able to reduce those emissions over time. I guess in the simplest form, they need to measure what they do across Scope 1, Scope 2 and Scope 3 emissions. That's either the direct emissions that they have from their operations or indirect emissions through their supply chain. The focus at the moment is very much around the direct emissions that they do from their operations. Secondly, it's kind of registering on the portal that they have at the MOCC AE, which is the Ministry of Climate Change, and making sure that they input all their data there. And it's keeping these records for up to 5 years and starting to put the action plan in place to be able to reduce those emissions over time. And I guess the reason this has come into play now is overall the UAE has an objective of reaching net zero by 2050. And in order to do so as a nation, we need to understand what our baseline is and how we can look to get to that achievement in the coming years.
So they're looking to gather that data now and be like, okay, we're here, but this is where we need to be.
Yeah,
exactly. Perfect. We're now very close to this deadline. Obviously, it's sort of been in the background for the last year as this law gets quietly introduced and we all kind of get used to it. How prepared do you think the UAE companies are at this stage?
I would say it's very mixed at the moment. So, for the last number of years, there's been a requirement for a lot of publicly listed entities, whether that's on DFM or ADX, to be able to report and do an annual ESG sustainability report. So for those organisations, you find they've probably started to do this over the course of the last few years, at least from a measuring, some of their overall emissions. And I think, especially in Abu Dhabi, where you have kind of large energy intensive industries as well, there's been a real kind of cooperation and collaboration with the energy agency in Abu Dhabi to work with some of these industries to understand what their overall emissions are and how we can look to tackle it over the future. So, there has been a lot of work that has been done in this area, especially for kind of the larger emitters and the large publicly listed organisations. I guess outside of that, for your mid-sized businesses and so forth, there's probably been less traction. So I would say there's two scales of it. So one being those that are aware of the regulations but haven't actually done anything just yet and not put anything into place. And others who, are only finding out about the regulation recently and trying to act quite quickly to be able to adhere to the requirements.
And that brings me on to my next question. If they haven't yet acted, a business is hearing this for the first time, it's completely been under the radar. What are the urgent steps that they should be taking right now to comply by the end of May?
Yeah, sure. So I guess firstly, the key thing is to register themselves on the ministry portal. There's a tool that's live where all entities need to go and register themselves. So I guess that's activity number one. And then as a business, as an organisation, the key thing is to get the right governance in place at a senior leadership level, so you have the right traction. The reality is when you're looking to identify your emissions, it's going to be across your organisation. It may touch finance, procurement, operations. And so it's really important that you get buy-in at senior levels. And then from there, it's about measuring the emissions that you have once you've got that buy-in across the organisation, and then being able to report on it as well. So I guess they would be the basic things to kind of get yourself in line for the end of May deadline.
I'm just hoping the portal's easy to use.
Relatively straightforward, yes. Yeah.
All these things. When I had to do my media license, my advertising license, I got on the portal and I was like, oh no. Actually, I worked it out, but you know, always a bit rabbits in the headlights sometimes with these things.
Yeah, I mean, so we actually had quite a few of our organisations that we work with ask us questions about it as well. So we actually went into the portal to go on and see how it is. It is relatively straightforward, but in addition to that, if you do engage with the ministry as well, they've got people who are there to help you and support you through the kind of onboarding and setup process as well, which is great.
Excellent. Now, penalties. They're saying the government they could reach up to 2 million dirhams. Mm-hmm. How strictly do you expect this to be enforced?
Look, I guess given there has been a transition period for 12 months now, and I think what we've seen historically in the UAE is we've had these frameworks that are being brought in, whether that's the reporting requirements, whether that's sustainable finance requirements, and now obviously the climate law. So I really think that from this point onwards, there's a shift from some of the ESG initiatives that are taking place to now enforcing some of these things as well. But, you know, I think given where organisations are, given this is something that's relatively new, I feel there will be a risk-based approach to tackling some of the penalties. I guess, you know, for organisations, the criticality is, you know, are you reporting something? You know, are you reporting, is it accurate or is it not? Or do you have people who are not engaging with the process at all? And I guess there's different degrees of what the penalty could be, but I think the key thing for organisations and for businesses is to make sure that they're engaged as part of this process, and they're, you know, making all attempts to try and report as accurately as possible for the requirements.
Yeah, and I guess the question now is, can businesses really turn this into a strategic advantage rather than it just being, you know, a tick box exercise? Yeah,
absolutely. And look, I mean, I guess sustainability is taking more of a forefront globally, right? So even with, you know, some of the organisations we've worked with before, you know, they haven't had a strong sustainability strategy in place. And what's that meant is when they've gone out to try and get capital from overseas markets, whether that's the US, the UK, and this was a couple of years ago, but they've actually been challenged by a lot of financial institutions around what they're doing in this space, right? What are they doing to either monitor their emissions, monitor their portfolio? What are they doing to make sure that they're reducing their overall emissions as well? And how are they making their organisation more resilient? So, look, this is a topic that has been coming up for the last couple of years. And this is kind of a stepping stone, right? It's an opportunity for organisations to get a reset on where they are, how their emissions are impacting the overall environment, and what they can do to kind of bring that back, and how they can kind of get those initiatives in place that kind of align with their overall core objective as well. And that's a key thing, I think, going forward for many resilient organisations.
Yeah. Gouban Gopal, thank you so much. You're Executive Director for Strategy and Transformation at Grant Thornton for UAE. Maybe we'll catch up with you in a month to see if you've had like a mad rush of businesses coming, to get it across the line in time for that deadline. Thanks for your advice. Thanks for your expertise and joining me on the agenda today.
Thank you.
I'm Serena Kelly. A man has been arrested in Sharjah